and one button later, everyone at home can now hear me. It's a very important button.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, Spirit of the universe, who commands us to kindle the lights of Shabbat. I'd like to share with you a poem for Emor, which is this week's Torah portion found in the book of Leviticus. This poem's by Stacy Robinson. Speak of ritual and rules of purity and piety. Speak of celebration and time that drifts and flows in a spiral of light and dark and bounty and decay. Speak in each session of coming and going and rising like smoke, like breath, effortless as thought, and rising, ever rising, kadosh, 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 holy. Speak of light and dark and oil that is holy and bread that sustains, a bounty, a banquet laid before you in God's presence. Speak of life and all that it is, life filled and whole and pushed to the edges of everything. A life that's filled with weakness and strength and holy and profane, with sacrifice and even binding. This shall be a time in every season, under every sky, both empty and filled, broken and whole. Speak of the whole of life. If you turn to your prayer books to page 13, you'll find the words to Psalm 96 with the translation, "Let the heavens rejoice and the earth exult." These are the words of Yismechu. Yamamai, my, mamai, yamamai, my, mamai, yamamai, my, mamai, my, 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 yamamai, my, mamai, yamamai, my, mamai, yamamai, my, mamai, my, 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 Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz, yiram hayam, umelo. Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz, yiram hayam, umelo. Yamamai, my, mamai, yamamai, my, mamai, yamamai, my, mamai, my, 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 yamamai, my, mamai, yamamai, my, mamai, yamamai, my, mamai, my, 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 Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz, yiram hayam, umelo. Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz, yiram hayam, umelo. It's said that there are two angels that greet us at the beginning of every Shabbat and accompany us wherever we go. These angels are messengers of God. You'll find the words, the welcome to these angels, Shalom Aleichem, on page 24 in your prayer books.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hashavim, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Amlakim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Lachem Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Malachei Amlakim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Amlakim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Amlakim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
We'll segue now to Shema and its blessings by chanting words of praise, the Hasikadish on 26.
Yitkadash v'yitkadash Shmei Rabbah B'yamad yivrachu tevyam lich malchutei B'chayechon uvyomechon Uv'chayed kol Beit Yisrael Bagala bagala Uvizman kariv V'imaru amen Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevorach Le'olam ul'almei amaya Yitbarach, Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitba'ar v'yitroman v'yitnasei V'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal Shmei dekudesha brichu Le'elam en kol berchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Damin ram be'ama v'imaru amen.
Let's rise now for the Baruch Hu, saying we are ready to pray on page 28. Lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai. Baruch et Adonai, Hamevorach. Baruch et Adonai, Hamevorach. Baruch Adonai Amorach, Le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai Amorach, Le'olam va'ed. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. Please join me in a prayer for the evening on page 31. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and seasons glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, You guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. And words of love on page 33. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Sing Open Up Our Eyes as a prelude to Shema Yisrael, Hear, O Israel. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live. Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. Open up our eyes. Teach us how to live. Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one, and we will know that you are one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malachuto Le'olam Va'ed. 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 Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Feel free to be seated. We'll continue chanting the words of the Shema, the V'ahavta, that is found on page 36 in your prayer books. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha v'hayu advarim ha'eleh asher anochi metzavcha hayom alevavecha Vishinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shiftecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech, ushokbecha uvkumecha, ukshartam le'ot al yadecha, v'hayulatot afot bein einecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha, leman tizkeru, vasitem et kol mitzvotai, vitem kedoshim leloechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. So we've reminded ourselves to love God with all of our heart, mind, and soul. We'll now turn to words of truth and faith, preparing for words of freedom on page 39. Feel free to join me. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we are taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Words of Micha Mocha. Micha Mocha Vayli Adonai, Micha Mocha Nedar Bakodesh, Micha Mocha Vayli Adonai, Micha Mocha Nedar Bakodesh, Norati Lo Osefele, Norati Lo Osefele. Micha Mocha Vayli Adonai, Micha Mocha Nedar Bakodesh, Micha Mocha Vayli Adonai, Micha Mocha Nedar Bakodesh, Norati Lo Osefele, Norati Lo Osefele. Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. We'll continue with the words of Hashkivenu, words of shelter and protection. You'll find these on page 42 in your prayer books. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim, u'shmor tzedkeinu, u'voeinu lechaim u'shalom, ve'ata ve'ad olam. Yivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu Lechaim V'hamidenu Shomreinu Lechaim V'hamidenu Shomreinu Lechaim V'hamidenu Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Let's rise now for the tefillah. These are our standing prayers, thanking God for the ability to pray for our ancestors, our strength, and our holiness, beginning on page 46.
Adonai, sifatai tiftachu fi hilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, El Hagadol, Hagibor, v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasarim Tovim, v'Chonei Hakol, v'Zocher Chastei Avot v'Imaot, u'Mevi Ula livnei vneihem, L'ma'an Shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, v'Ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei Hakol, Atah Rav laHoshia, Morid hatal, Mechachel chaim bechesed, Mechayei Hakol berachamim rabim, Somech nofim v'rofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umechaem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Umidom elach, Melech memit umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'chachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hakol.
Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'kol yom, yalucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. You're free to be seated. And you'll find the 4th, 5th, and 6th blessing of the 7 for Shabbat, Kiddushat Hayom, for the holiness of Shabbat on page 55. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. And for worship Avodah on 56, blessed are you, Adonai, whose presence returns to Zion. Baruch atah Adonai Hamachazir Shechinato Litzion, and for gratitude, times that we have in our lives which are truly special, like this evening. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, ucha na'eh lechodot. And finally, for peace, peace here and in Israel and throughout the world on page 60. Grant abundant peace to Israel, your people forever, for you're the sovereign God of all peace. May it be pleasing to you to bless your people Israel in every season and moment with your peace. Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael, ba'shalom. So we're going to take just a few moments for our own thoughts and prayers. And Allison and I thought it would be nice and appropriate to share this song called You're on Holy Ground. It's in the Shabbat booklets or on the screen if you are watching from home. Every minute, every hour, every day, everything, everyone, every place, every way, where you stand, where you walk, where you love, where you praise. All of life is holy ground. Every he, every she, every word, every who, it's in her, it's in them, it's in me, it's in you, in the bitter, in the sweet, in the calm, in the storm. All of life is holy ground. So walk as if it's holy ground. Breathe as if it's all around. Talk and make a holy sound. Take your shoes off, you're on holy ground. When you hurt, when you heal, when you laugh, when you pray, when you doubt, when you keep, when you give it away. Every second, every minute, every hour, every day. All of life is holy ground. So walk as if it's holy ground. Breathe as if it's all around. Talk and make a holy sound. Take your shoes off, you're on holy ground. One story, one journey, one tapestry. One people, one glory, one legacy we leave. Every second, every minute, every hour, every day. Everything, everyone, every place, every way. When you stand, where you walk, where you love, where you praise. All of life is holy ground. Can you feel the holy ground? Take your shoes off, you're on holy ground. If you turn to the middle of your prayer books to page 253, you'll find our prayer and words of healing, Mi Sheberach, God the one who blesses. This time we think of all those who are ill due to the pandemic. We also turn our thoughts to Israel for those who are recovering following the crush of individuals at Mount Meron in northern Israel while they were celebrating Lag BaOmer. Along with the following individuals, in our congregation and beyond who are in need of healing. We think of Jerry Bauk, Herb Bloom, Marcy Bunn, Lisa Cargile, Eddie Deerfield, Evelyn Edelman, Heather Felser, Harry Fleisch, Andrew Guerin, Leah Gottlieb, Chad Harvey, Arthur Maller, Arnold Miller, William Miller, Stephanie Ross, Babette Schoenfeld, Robert Schoenfeld, Andrew Shapiro, and Jeff Stark. Are there any other names to add for healing at this time, either here or at home?
I'd like to add my father, George Stark.
It's the first Pixar film to feature an African-American lead character with a predominantly African-American cast. It won 2 Academy Awards for Best Animated Feature and Best Original Score, despite never having played in a single U.S. theater. And it collected dozens of additional accolades and awards, from Golden Globes to the National Board of Review to the Black Film Critics Circle. Its music, in my opinion, was sublime, and it introduced many kids and adults to the beauty of jazz and improvisation, my daughter included. And she, Maytal, she wanted me to use her name, inspired me to actually write a sermon on this very film. But most of all, the film tackled some pretty serious subjects and questions with a great deal of respect about the nature of our soul, what might happen in the afterlife, and the extent to which we're predestined with a particular personality. The movie is Soul. In this film, the Imagineers, I think that's what they're called, at Disney Plus, who owns Pixar, they really went outside of the box, and they delved pretty deeply into the world of metaphysics. These are abstract concepts and religious concepts like the essence of our being, knowing what our true purpose in life is, and how we've actually come to be. It's a pretty impressive movie that manages to be both entertaining and thought-provoking. When I first watched the film with my family, I think it was about a couple months ago, I was really taken aback. I figured that the movie was about jazz music, which is pretty safe territory for a teenager and a smaller kid. So I was really surprised when the lead character, Joe Gardner, who was played by Jamie Foxx, literally fell down a sewer hole and died while crossing the street within the first 10 minutes of the movie. Nevertheless, I loved this character, Joe. He was an affable middle school teacher, a band teacher, who had a dream of becoming a world-famous jazz pianist. And it looked like his time had finally come. After auditioning in the city with a famous jazz singer, he actually landed a gig touring the country with their band, so things were looking pretty up. Then things took a radical turn, and we get a sneak peek at Pixar's version of the afterlife, as Joe, who's a cartoon like the whole movie, heads to a place that they call the Great Before, which is somewhat of an ethereal collection of souls that eventually are book matched with a body here on Earth. It's pretty heady stuff, so much so that the creators consulted a number of religious figures for some wisdom and advice. They spoke to a rabbi, to a number of Christian pastors, a Buddhist instructor, and even a couple shamans. Now, death isn't exactly new territory for a film. In fact, it's historically been the subject of some pretty great comedic material. Just to name a couple films, Defending Your Life with Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep. There's Ghost with that famous pottery wheel scene with Demi Moore and the late Patrick Swayze. And then there are classic TV shows like one that I grew up with, Highway to Heaven, with the late Michael Landon, and more recently The Good Place with Ted Danson, Kristen Bell, and Jamila Jamil. All of these shows and films, to a greater or lesser extent, thread the needle of exploring these issues of death and the afterlife, but in a pretty disarming way, just like the film Soul. You should know that Judaism has a whole lot to say about what happens in our version of the Great Before. In the mystical tradition called Kabbalah, we learn about a place called Olam HaNishamot, translated to a world of souls. Sometimes it's even called the Garden of Eden. This is a place where all the souls descend into the world. And the Zohar, probably the greatest mystical commentary on the Torah, they expand on this idea. They teach that before a single soul is brought down into the world, God shows the soul what their life will be like. And only after the soul says, Amen, meaning I agree or I'm ready, does the soul choose this life, and then a person is born. It's an amazing way to think about our soul, the essence of who we are, as well as our unique purpose in life. And if that isn't enough, you want to go a little bit more out of field. There's even a teaching in Kabbalah that if we somehow don't achieve our purpose in this life, we can actually be reincarnated and given another opportunity to succeed. In many ways, this film Soul is connected to Judaism's teaching. Take this world of souls, for example. In the film, the main character, Joe, meets this bold and courageous character, kind of an outline cartoon, and its name is 22. But this character, 22, just isn't ready to be born. So it resists. It says, I'm not going to go, saying, I know it's happening here in the Great Before. I'm close to the very source of being, why would I want to go down to earth with all of its uncertainty, its sadness, and even pain? I'm just better off exactly where I am. Perhaps the filmmakers were taking a cue from our Mishnah, the first code of law following the Torah. Here in a section called Chapters of the Fathers, or Pirkei Avot, we read this really interesting statement. You were created against your will. You were born against your will. You will live against your will. You will die against your will. And you will give a reckoning before the Holy One against your will. In essence, this teaching is letting us know, in no uncertain terms, that all of us will be eventually judged at the end. There are also similarities in the film to Judaism's understanding of our purpose in life, which I would imagine that many of our high school graduates might be thinking about and will continue to think about in their college years. I know I certainly was when I was in college. Soul takes the time to explore this issue of purpose, and their answer is that everybody has a spark which makes us special, a unique quality that animates our being and pushes us forward to improve the world and those around us. For Joe, it's music. We learn about this when he talks about this potential touring gig in his dream of becoming a pro pianist, to which Joe responds, "This gig just isn't about my career. It's my actual reason for living." In Jewish terms, the source of our spark, and everyone has this spark, it's called a neshek in Hebrew, is God. And it's something we should be thankful for. And our purpose, at least one answer can be found with the wise words of King Solomon in the book of Ecclesiastes, who writes, "Ultimately, when everything is known, trust God and observe the commandments. This is the whole purpose of being born." It's so important for us to find our spark, our neshek, and to recognize our unique or special skills. But perhaps it's even more significant for us to use this spark for ourselves and for the sake of others. And while Joe certainly could have done this as a professional pianist, it might have come at a cost, because he would need to leave his family for long stretches at a time, and because he was already a wonderful music teacher. And while he might not have considered teaching his greatest performance, to my mind, this was his spark. Sharing his passion about the beauty of jazz, music, and improv with questioning minds. I think this is what really makes Joe's heart soar, even more than a great solo that he could perform on stage. One final thought about this movie. In the film, there's this godlike being called Terry. Unfortunately, Terry made a small mistake with some pretty big consequences. He mixed 22's soul with Joe's body. So Terry had to go down to earth and fix the problem. It was a mistake. But when Terry made the repairs, a little bit of Terry was left behind, just a touch here and there. So it is with God. In mysticism, there's this idea called divine providence. It teaches us that we can see God in discernible ways, moments that can come in many forms. It might come in the form of a friend who lifts our spirit after a really tough day or a tough week. It might come as an idea that pops into our head just when we need it most, which helps us move forward after being stuck in a rut. And it can be found in nature. Something small but noticeable, like when you're driving a car, the clouds part and you see just a little ray of sunshine peeking through the clouds, illuminating our world with great beauty. Some people would call these coincidences or just luck. But I think there's some wisdom to this idea of seeing God's presence in everyday life. We just need to keep our eyes open and our ears ready to hear whenever it occurs. In the end, does soul actually answer any of these existential questions? Our reason for being, what happens after we die, or where our souls go? Of course not, because it's a 100-minute animated Disney film. It's not a treatise in metaphysics. But it does a pretty good job getting us thinking about these questions. And not just adults, mind you. It gets kids interested in these questions and ideas too, which is pretty impressive in my book. My suggestion is to go and see it. It's entertaining, it's meaningful, and it's good family fun. And you won't even be surprised at what happens in the first 10 minutes. If I could borrow a tagline from the late Siskel and Ebert, who inspired a generation or more of film critics, I would say 2 thumbs up. Shabbat shalom. This time of year, in between Passover and Shavuot, the feast or holiday of weeks in late spring, we do something called counting the Omer. On the screen before you, you'll find some slides that include the prayers and the formula for adding the extra day of the Omer, traditionally a small bundle of barley that was given at the Jerusalem temple. For those of us here in the sanctuary, you can turn to page 278, where you'll find the following. First, a statement saying we're ready to count the Omer. Hineni muchan umzuman lekayem mitzvat aseh shel sfirat ha'omer, which is followed by the blessing commanding us to count the Omer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. And now for the formula, I'll add in the blank spaces. Hayom arba'a u'shloshim yom, shehem arba'a shavuot v'shisha yamim la'omer, which means today's the 34th day of the Omer, just a little over halfway of these 7 weeks, which is 4 weeks and 6 days of the Omer. And now, to honoring our high school graduates. You've been very patiently waiting and being part of the service, and it's been wonderful having you here sharing the Bima. So first, I'd like to introduce each of our high school seniors, where they're graduating from high school, and then their future college or university plans. So first we have Jenna Aiken, who graduated from Palm Harbor University and is going to Florida State University. We have a number of graduates who are going to Florida State. Jayla Bandies, graduating from Berkeley Preparatory School and going to Florida State University. Zoe Bandies also graduated from Berkeley Preparatory School and also going to Florida State University. Paris Bild, who is going to graduate from Tarpon Springs High School and is going to George Mason University. Josh Chazen, who is graduating from Palm Harbor University High School and going to St. Petersburg College. Caroline Goldstein, who is graduating from Tampa Preparatory School and is going to American University. Jody Lampert, graduating from Palm Harbor University High School and attending University of Central Florida. Simon Nardia is watching from home. We say congratulations. He will be graduating from Palm Harbor University High School and attending University of South Florida. And Bryn Wexler is graduating from Palm Harbor University High School and is our fourth graduate going to Florida State University. All right, so maybe, how about if I could ask all of you to just place your prayer books just on the seat and maybe kind of gather in the center, and then everyone can see all of you. I'm not exactly sure what the angle looks like for those viewing at home. Maybe you can just stand right up on that little step. So first, a prayer for all of you as you begin to celebrate this important moment in your lives, a beautiful transition from high school into the next chapter in your lives, going to college or to university. We say, Holy One of Blessing, we gather to celebrate this great achievement of these young men and women, and we congratulate each and every one of you on your success. And we ask for God's blessing, that God will bless each of you with wisdom and with strength, with love and with insight, with open minds and caring hearts, with safety and good judgment. Yehi ratzon milfanecha Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu Shetolichehem lishalom. May it be your will, God, that you deliver all of our graduates from any harm, misfortune, or trouble that they will find on their journey. May they continue to act with kindness and benevolence toward others. And wherever their journeys take them, may they find love, happiness, friendship, and community, to which we say together, Amen. And for reaching this moment for our lives, the source of being, thanking God for that, and for reaching special moments, we can sing the words of Shehechianu together.
Baruch
atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Truly proud of all of you. This was certainly a senior year, not like any other. It was truly unique, and each of you, I know, had to show a tremendous amount of personal strength and resilience and flexibility to deal with the many curves that this year brought to each and every one of you. But know that with this experience, even the challenging parts of this past year and the unknowns that it brought to many of our lives, that you'll always have this reservoir of personal strength to call upon. And hopefully this strength will continue to guide you towards success in your life, to many things to be proud of, and to a life filled with wisdom and companionship and lots of learning for each and every one of you. I say Mazel Tov to all of you, and conveniently, you are right next to the ark. And if I could ask just a couple of you to open the ark and ask all of us to rise, Allison and I will share a very special blessing called Birkat Kohanim, the priestly benediction. with all of our graduates.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha ve'yasem lecha shalom.
May God bless and guard each and every one of you. May God's presence and God's light always shine brightly before you in life. And may God bless you with many gifts, most especially the blessing of shalom, a feeling of peace and completeness in your heart. And let us say together, Amen. We'll keep the ark open, and for those of us with prayer books, if you turn to page 282, you'll find the words of Aleinu, the Adoration.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, l'tir gedula le'otzer bereshit, shelo asanu k'goyei haratzot, ve'lo samanu k'mishpachot harama, shelo sam k'keinu kahem, ve'or aleinu k'chol hamonam, ve'anaknu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני נלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Feel free to close the ark. To your seats. Feel free to be seated, everyone. And mazel tov to all of the parents of our graduates, brothers and sisters, maybe some grandparents or other members of the family who might be watching from home, as we are still a bit limited in our in-person capacity. We'll now turn to words of memory and remembrance. The words of Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. We think of the following families who are in the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning, as we remember Deborah Tripp, mother of Lauren Barlas, Stephen Knoll, husband of Judy Knoll, Diana Rosen, cousin of Cynthia Jackson, Evelyn Smolowitz, friend of Sue Fischelow, and David Bloom, brother of Herb Bloom. We also call to mind and to heart those who lost their lives in the stampede at Mount Meron yesterday in Israel, along with those who have died of COVID. And on this Shabbat, we mark the yahrzeit, the anniversary of passing of loved ones, with a sense of love and affection as we remember Gloyd Ayers, Stanley Barnett, Walter Bernstein, Morris Bloomberg, Elizabeth Brownstein, Anna Castillo, Joseph Dunn, Ariel Goldman, Gertrude Cadis, Priya Khanna, Morris Klein, Betty Raskin-Kotler, Douglas Manning, Esther Miller, Lawrence Platt, Ben Richter, Tom Ross, Seymour Rubin, Richard Schiffman, Howard Schloss, Jack Siderman, Frida Scheidler, Barry Tallering, Lester Weatherhorn, Max Wexler, Ella Young, and John Zisman. Are there any other names to add for Yahrzeit? Please. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. We say Zichronam Livracha, may the memories of all of these good people serve as a lasting blessing in our lives as we rise together to offer the words of Kaddish praise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, b'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dekol beit Yisrael, b'agalav v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mivarach, le'alam u'lamei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal, Shemei dekudesha barichu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Osei shalom b'mramav, hu ya'asei shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May the one who causes peace in the heavens cause peace to descend on us, Israel, and the world, as we say, Amen.
V'miru, 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 Amen. V'miru, v'miru, v'miru,
Feel free to be seated. We'll continue with the Shabbat Kiddush, wine or grape juice representing joy. For those in the sanctuary, we are on page 5.
Baruch
atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho v'ava uvratzon hinkilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom tehila l'mikra'e kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim ki banu v'charta v'otanu kidasha mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha b'ava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Amen. Chaim to life.
Hamotzi
Motzi lechem min haaretz, We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Few brief announcements. First, many thanks to Allison for her beautiful voice and leading us in song. To our tech crew in the back, thank you so much. And of course, to all of our high school graduates, mazel tov to each of you. Many thanks to those who participated in Mitzvah Day last Sunday. It was a lot of fun, and a lot of great mitzvahs were done, both here at the temple, putting together well over 100 sandwiches for those in need, and with the religious school families and kids at John Chestnut Park. That was also a lot of fun, hanging out in those huts and doing some great things. Beginning on Tuesday, May 4th at 11, I'll be live streaming a 3-part adult ed series called Sages and Scholars, the wisdom of Hillel, Akiva, and Maimonides. On Sunday, May 16th at 5 p.m., the Jewish Federation and area synagogues will live stream the original Zoom, a Shavuot experience. It's an opportunity to learn from Pinellas County rabbis. Each of us are teaching a small segment for that live stream. And on Friday, May 21st, be sure to join us for our Sisterhood Shabbat service. And on the following Friday, the 28th, our adult Benot Mitzvah service. So some great things to look forward to. We're going to close out our prayer by singing Oseh Shalom. It's found on the screen in front of you or on 343. That's going to be the closest page for you. May the one who causes peace in the heavens. Oseh Shalom Bimromah Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'akol Yisrael Dimeru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromah Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu ve'akol Yisrael Dimeru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromah Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu ve'akol We'll conclude our services as we've been doing with a prayer for health and well-being, the importance of wearing a mask, protecting ourselves and others. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al shmirat hanefesh, for the mitzvah and sacred obligation of protecting our life and the lives of those around us. Shabbat shalom to each and every one of you, and mazel tov to all of our graduates and their families. Take care.
Congratulations, everyone. I know, I haven't like been here like over here. It's so weird. Yeah, like this month is crazy. Super weird. My brother went there. Oh, yeah. varying decisions.
Where were you contemplating?
It was American and Tulane. It was like,
Oh,
I know. And they were like, it's like they were at the same school, like besides like location. So it was just like, it was.
Well, DC is such a, well, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So DC is, to be in a hub like that.
Yeah. Especially, I want to go into international relations.
Oh, well,
so,
then, that right there makes it.
Yeah, it was kind of like I'll have a lot more opportunity. Yes, I'm really excited. Yeah, probably around late August. Yeah, so.
We'll miss you. Well, we'll miss you here. I'm gonna miss seeing you and your mom, and it's a crazy time. But hopefully,
Hopefully, yeah, that is definitely a goal.
oh my gosh, yes. No, that's
Mazel tov.
Thank you so much. I love your necklace.
pretty.
Thank you. Oh, yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's always we're such gorgeous things.
How are you?
Doing all
How's your day doing?
stabilized.
Yeah.
Stabilized. So it hasn't, nothing's like gotten any, hasn't gotten worse, you know. So if anything, he's gotten some relief. I think I told you he had a procedure where his stomach was drained for his ascites, and
Okay.
so they took like 4 liters out of it. So he feels better, you know, in that respect.
Do we have pancreatic?
Pancreatic, yeah. So it's a tough way to go.
It is.
Stage 4. So it's kind of like,
Don't get comfortable.
yeah, and he isn't doing chemo. He decided to do immunotherapy instead, which is really nice. But so you know, we'll see and take it as it comes. But as long as he's stable, then I will be extremely happy
Yes.
with
I'd be blessed that he's gotten enough time.
exactly.
Suffering. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm just hoping that it's, you know, it's
Everybody must go, but we don't know how.
How
It's
exactly.
really it's tough.
well, that's the thing, you know, it's like, yes, you know, we all know that it's not, life is not something that stays on forever.
Thank God.
Yeah, you know, in one way, like, you hate to see the ones that you love go, or you hate to lose the ones that you
Yeah.
love. But it's,
But you lose him physically and emotionally and spiritually. You don't. I mean,
Yeah.
I think of Hank all the
the
time.
time, and Paula thinks of Jay, because I know it's all there, and it stays with you, and the memories stay with you, but you can't physically touch that person,
Yeah,
hug that
that's
person.
right.
And that's
You have
where
him in your dreams and so
Yeah.
forth. You do. I know. Yeah. My father died when he was 44 years old. I was at college, and my uncle came and told me that your dad died. This was brother. It was horrendous. Yeah, it was really horrendous.
44.
44. Yeah, I was 18. I was in school. So, you know, everybody goes, and it's sad to say, but it's, you know, I hope that you're going to go with enough pain and
Exactly.
suffering. So it's good to see you. You look great. This dress is adorable, and I don't know how someone can have this look this beautiful.
God, I was like,